Saturday night. That means it's time for the Don Tony Show.
The wait all week long is finally over. Get Don Tony's perspective on current affairs in the world of pro wrestling and much more. The Don Tony Show.
And now your host, the man, the legend, Don Tony.
Not only do we have Night of Champions today, we have a Weekend of Champions. Last night was Impact Wrestling's Under Siege. Today it's WWE Night of Champions. Tomorrow, Sunday, the 28th of May, it'll be NXT Battleground and AEW Double or Nothing. You know, I realize we have a little dilemma. Soon as this live stream is over, I'm going to put a poll up on the community section here on YouTube, and I definitely need you all to vote. Let me know how we handle tomorrow's episode of The Sit Down. Do we do it in a normal time slot of 8:05 p.m. Eastern, which means it'll be going on at the same time as AEW and NXT? I know some of you out there want to watch one of those two products. Do we do it earlier? Maybe 6 o'clock at night? Maybe 5 o'clock at night? Maybe we don't do it at all. So we'll put a poll up and majority rules. What's up, everybody? It is your abbreviated edition of the Don Tony Show. I am Don Tony. Today we'll finish around noon, which will be a good hour. And today, Night of Champions airs live here in New York at 1 p.m. Eastern. Pre-show, I think, is at 12:30. This show will be done by 12. So you will have plenty of time to go get your popcorn, take a leak, get your beverage, get situated for Night of Champions. We'll be done way before then. So if you have not done so already, Kevin and I did a predictions episode. It is over at dontony.com. This coming Tuesday, come Tuesday. Kevin and I will be doing a recap and review. I know everybody and their mother's going to be doing one today. Yeah, we're going to take our time and think about it, let it sink in a little bit. We'll let Raw go down to see what transpires afterwards. You know, we don't need to, rush and do it live. And then after the show is over, it's like, man, I forgot something. So we got some news to get into. Some interesting rumor killers, some interesting controversy floating around. Got a couple of audio clips for you as well. I guess right off the bat, let's just clear 3 fake stories going around online. And by the way, Tony Khan did a media call hyping up Double or Nothing. If you're paying attention to what he said and you think about what transpired over the last month, he basically called out a bunch of fake news. He basically exposed a lot of fake news online, and probably wasn't intentionally doing it, but he certainly did when we get into a little bit of a recap. Hulk Hogan, he is coming out with his own line of, I think, marijuana. I don't know if he's releasing shrooms or CBD, but, he did an interview with Ariel Helwani. He did a couple of interviews last week. And unfortunately, man, I think he put his foot in his mouth once again about the racist accusations. And what gets me about it is all the hosts, because they're probably oohing and ahhing that they got Hulk Hogan on their show, doesn't hit him with, a follow-up question. Calling that incident, using the N-word as a bump in the road, a speed bump. I just think that for everybody out there who is very insensitive towards Hulk Hogan, plus a huge part of the wrestling world, I'm talking about the wrestlers themselves, who still have not forgiven Hulk Hogan for what he said. And in his eyes, a speed bump. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Now, I guess I wasn't planning on opening up with this, but since we just mentioned Hulk Hogan, I gotta just throw this out there now. And in no way, shape, or form am I excusing this person for some of the shit that he said in the past. But, you know, I do believe in redemption. I do believe when people do grow and mature and apologize. Sometimes people are going through dark times in their life. And they say some out of control, you know, comments, you know, very, very offensive comments. You see what's been going on for the last 48 hours with regards to Sabu. This article title is the one that really caught my attention more than anything else. AEW under fire about Sabu's past racist and sexist comments resurface. My friends, and to all these how do you say it, selective people with selective outrage, Sabu's previous comments did not resurface. They were always there. It's just you weren't offended at the time. And no, this was not said in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s. These were said as recent as a couple of years ago. It's just that it wasn't a big enough story for you to care. And honestly, the people reporting that Sabu never apologized for his previous comments, yes, he did. Yes, he did. He apologized to a lot of people in the world of pro wrestling. He just didn't apologize to me and to you and to the everyday folk out there. Should he, you know, humble himself and apologize to everybody? I don't know. But the thing is that, you know, Melissa Coates, God rest her soul, Melissa Coates, she straightened his ass out. And he was in a very, very, I'm not making excuses for the guy. What he said was disgusting. In fact, sometimes, let's be honest, it's like White Castle. You know, it's like a guilty pleasure. When Sabu was at the height of a lot of his whacked out of control comments on social media, people were sitting there with popcorn waiting for the next one. Oh my God, did you hear what he said? Guy's fucked up. No, the guy has apologized to a lot of people. That's why Tony Khan is bringing him in for Sunday. It's a one-shot deal. And you know what? Props to AEW and Tony Khan for, you know, seeing, and this is just not an overnight thing, seeing that someone has truly repented for their sins and has evolved into a different person. The death of Melissa Coates, you know, just devastated Sabu, but he was changing in a lot. Look at his social media footprint before he started, you know, really getting serious with Melissa Coates, and then afterwards, and you'll see it. You'll see it as clear as day. It's just that people at the time, they didn't give a shit. If you're offended, if I kick a dog in the face, you're going to be offended whether I did it 5 years ago or 5 minutes ago. You're going to be offended whether 5 people took note of it or 5 million people took note of it. If something truly offends you, it offends you when there's no audience. And there's a hell of a lot of people out there that are suddenly offended. How dare AEW, blah, 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 blah. Honestly, eat a fucking Snickers. That's what I have to say. That's what I have to say. Now, Hulk Hogan. Let's briefly get into Hulk Hogan. I thought this was cute. Hulk Hogan is already with the babanya. He did an interview with Ariel Helwani and a couple other media outlets out there. And yes, a few moments ago, I talked about how he labeled his incident, saying, you know, getting caught on camera, you know, saying the N-word, that it was a speed bump. You know, he was, you know, for the people that know me, they know that I have no hate and that's not me and this and that. You know, I dare him to say that to a lot of the wrestlers in WWE. I dare him to say that to a lot. He wouldn't go and do the speaking engagements and try, because in his eyes, oh, I always said that word. It's a speed bump. It's just a bump in the road. For everybody who was truly extremely offensive by it, you may go out. You should go out of your way and be a little. I hate to use this comparison, but that's something Donald Trump would say. I mean, look, I used to be a big supporter of Donald Trump, and one of the things that really started to turn me off was that when there was a lot of social issues going on, I mean, social issues were always going on, but when social issues were going on, you think of George Floyd and other things. Now, look, George Floyd was not a saint. Jordan Neely, that got killed in New York City, is not a saint. Should they have deserved to die? No. But the thing is that sometimes you got to show a little compassion. You have to go that extra step, even if the person you're showing compassion for is not the most ideal person in the world. You got to show it. And to me, Hogan brushing it off like that, it's like a larger-than-life millionaire superstar, former superhero pro wrestler that just feels like, no, I know who I am. And, if you think that I'm not who I am, well, you're the one that's wrong. And I just think that's ridiculous. But where I thought it was cute with him is, and if you listened to Ariel Helwani's interview, you caught it. And I know people who did the recaps, nobody caught it, but I caught it immediately. Hulk Hogan talking about WrestleMania this year, Shane McMahon. Hulk Hogan was supposed to go at it with Shane McMahon. Hulk Hogan also wants to have a retirement match at WrestleMania 40. Now, believe it or not, when I actually started thinking about this a little bit, I started thinking like, hey, you know what? That might not be that bad of an idea because it's the 40-year anniversary of Hulkamania. Hulkamania was technically born in 1984, actually. 83 if you want to count AEWA, but 84. So next year is the 40th anniversary of Hulkamania. It's WrestleMania 40. Me personally, if Hulk Hogan is going to have a retirement match, I think it should be a tag team. Him going one-on-one with anybody, I think is a moronic idea. But when he was talking about Shane McMahon, I thought something that was pretty cute about it. Now, the funny thing is if you look closely at this screenshot that I took of Hulk Hogan talking to Ariel Helwani, Hogan looks toasted, man. He looks fucking stoned out of his mind. And yeah, him saying, oh, my body feels like when I was 25 or 30. This guy is actually saying that he feels like he's 30 years old, that his body is so much out of pain. Miraculously, all the back surgeries and all the painkillers and all the fucking, we're not going to accuse him of certain medicinals, opioids, but, all of that. No. My weed. I feel like I'm 25, 30 years old again. But in the conversation, he brings up Shane McMahon. I want to see if anybody in the chat room right now can pick up on the incorrect data that Hulk Hogan said. And if you don't pick up on it, I will show you a pictorial clarification. This is Hulk Hogan talking about Shane McMahon and WrestleMania. It's only a minute, by the way. Let me pull it up. Hold on. Let's do it like this. All right, here we go.
Is it possible that you feel so good that you'll do one more match? Have we turned back the clock here?
You know what's so funny, Shane McMahon called, right?
Okay.
He goes, you got one more in the old man. I said, take it easy with the old man stuff, brother, And so I said, what do you want to do? He goes, all you got to do is stand in the middle of the ring and I'll come to you. I said, well, right now my back needs a little more work, but that's something we can talk about next year. I have always wanted to have a retirement match.
Yeah, you've never had one, right?
Now I'm not moving around the way I should be. So I'm going to keep working, keep training, and keep doing rehab and see where I'm at about 6 months from now. But All I found out in the wrestling business, brother, is you never say never.
Right. And when was that he called you? Was that for this past WrestleMania?
No, I talked to Shane probably about 3 months before WrestleMania.
Okay. 3 months before WrestleMania. That would have been January of 2023. All right. Truth be told, well, let's hear the rest of the comments. Only a few seconds. Now I want to show you something. Just remember January 2023 on the brain.
And he happened to be in Madison Square Garden. And I guess there's a place in Madison Square Garden where they've got Hall of Fame. And they've got my boots up there and they've got my tights. And he took a picture standing in front of it. And Shane called me at home, and he goes, hey, look at that picture I just sent you. So I looked at it. He goes, well, you got one more in you. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And so he started running storylines by me, to try to ramp us into that mode. And I said, well, those are all good storylines, whether you're coming at me like, Hulk, you quit, my father made you, and you left my dad, you walked out on my father, which I did, or go the opposite way, that my dad did you wrong, because him and his dad go back and forth all the time. My dad did you wrong. I want to, revitalize your career. There's several things we came up with. But I told him, I said, I just need to get my feet underneath me more. Now's not the time. Not this WrestleMania, definitely not. Well, let's talk about 4 or 5 months from now, and we'll see where I'm at.
Wow, yeah, and that would be WrestleMania 40 next year, so it would be very apropos, considering you were such a big part of WrestleMania 1.
All right. The only inaccuracy about that is, hold on, let me show you. Here's the picture of Shane McMahon at Madison Square Garden. The tweet, Hulk, got one more in ya? Yeah, that was February of last year. That was not this year. It was not 3 months before WrestleMania. This was a year and a half ago. So you remember the tweet? I mean, he was in, and think about this. At that time, people were saying there was this major falling out with Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon. Remember, this was right after the Royal Rumble. Remember the Royal Rumble disaster last year with Shane McMahon? This was literally a month after the Royal Rumble, and Shane McMahon was already pitching ideas of having Hulk Hogan have a retirement match, a WrestleMania match. And, would Shane McMahon be doing all that if there was this major fallout between him and his dad? Remember, he walked out, he'll never be back ever again. So this was pitched last year. We almost got Shane McMahon versus Hulk Hogan last year, but Hulk Hogan was not smoking weed last year. He wasn't growing his own stash. So now Ariel Helwani asks him about WrestleMania 40. And I will tell you this. The excuse that Hulk Hogan gives about 2003, was it 02? It was either 02 or 03. I think it was 02. The excuse that he gives why he never got the opportunity to wrestle the person he wants to wrestle, it actually does make sense. So I don't think Hulk Hogan is lying here, but this is who Hulk Hogan would like to face at WrestleMania 40.
If someone called you up right now and said, all right, we want to do the big retirement match at WrestleMania, who's your choice for an opponent? If you had your way, who would you pick?
If he would get in the ring with me, that's the reason I went back to wrestle The Rock was to get in the ring with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because me as a bad guy, as Hollywood Hogan, I could have tore the place down with him. Because he was the ultimate good guy at the time, but I think he was having some physical problems with his legs and nerve damage. And he was about at the end of his run. So if I had one guy to get in there with, it'd be him.
Why do you say if he would get in the ring with me?
Why do I say that?
Yeah.
Well, because when I went up there, that was when I talked to Vince. He asked me if I'd wrestle The Rock. I said, yeah, I'll wrestle The Rock. I don't mind putting him over. He was going, to do the movies and stuff. And you were there. You saw how the crowd reacted.
Yep.
Real favorable for the bad guy, And so my whole thing was to move on to Steve, but I had no idea that physically he was hurt.
Got it.
So I just don't know with all this time passing, and both of us getting older and wiser that it would even make sense. So you have to be crazy to get back in there at my age anyway. And I just haven't talked to him about anything like that ever. So if he would get in the ring, he would be the guy.
Okay. Believe it or not, I don't think Hulk Hogan is lying here, because if you remember that WrestleMania where Hulk Hogan took on The Rock, Steve Austin took on Scott Hall. Steve Austin retired a month later. So I actually believe him in that case. Now, do I want to see Steve Austin versus Hulk Hogan WrestleMania 40? Oh, fucking no way. And listen, I grew up a Hulkamaniac. I have said a lot of criticism about Hulk Hogan over the years. I'm blocked and banned from the guy. And, he still, has got a lot of issues about himself. As a wrestling fan, should he have had his retirement match? Yes, but it should have been years ago. All I could say to you now is I think back to the Hulkamania tour in Australia, him and Ric Flair, and that was over 10 years ago. And that was the drizzling shits on steroids. That was fucking awful. Look at Ric Flair again in the match that he had, very recently, the last match he had. You look at his arms. It looks like, if somebody had in this freezer like some Frank Perdue, like chicken legs or wings or just a whole chicken that's just been sitting in the back of their freezer for 20 years, and they take it out and it's just like sagging. That looked pathetic. Ric Flair looked awful. I don't care, I'm happy that he didn't fucking die in the ring. Hulk Hogan cannot move around. He says, oh, brother, I feel like his body isn't 25 or 30. Just because, listen, I could do heroin right now. I've never done it. I never will. But I could do any opioid you want. I could do anything. And I probably would feel amazing that I would say, you know what, let me jump off my roof. And I'm fine. I feel so good. I'm going to jump off my roof. Trust me, when I go falling down and I'm laying on the floor, the fuck did you do? I feel great, brother. But meanwhile, my legs are broken. My hip is broken. My back is broken. My head is cracked open. I'm exaggerating injuries. My point is, he's still going to be 70 years old by the time that WrestleMania goes around. If he's going to do anything, let it be a tag match. Let him do a couple of moves. That is it. Doesn't have to do, the leg drop. If there's a lot that he could do that, would be fine. But, no way, shape, or form do I think anybody in their right mind wants to see Hogan versus Austin at WrestleMania 40. Shit, if you want to do a bunch of legends. I got news for you. Back in the day, there was an episode of Monday Nitro. If I remember correctly, Jeff Jarrett took on George the Animal Steel, Jimmy Snuka, and somebody else. And believe it or not, that for anybody that remembers the Masked Maniac was involved in booking that. A lot of people don't know that. It was a fun little moment. Maybe you have Hulk Hogan team up with like 2 or 3 other legends, and have them maybe even similar to what we had with Chris Jericho several years back. Remember with the movie The Wrestler, and it led to Ricky Steamboat and stuff. But no, I don't want to see Hulk Hogan in a one-on-one match with anybody. I don't care how good he feels. He's still 70 years old. He still's got all these fucking surgeries. And honestly, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Hulk Hogan should be, at this stage of the game, at 70 years old, with tomorrow never guaranteed, that he should be celebrated more in the world of pro wrestling, and he is not. And one of the big reasons is because of when he got caught on camera saying what he's saying. And even though in his heart and in his soul that he's not malicious, he's not racist, he doesn't hate black people, he doesn't feel this way, it's just the perception. Other people don't believe you, and you show nothing to be, remorseful for. That lack of remorse, is the problem. And as long as that stays around, pro wrestling's going to keep shunning this guy, and it's going to probably echo a little bit of superstar Billy Graham. I mean, Hulk Hogan is still beloved amongst a lot of fans out there. But what's going to happen is Hulk Hogan is still going to be shunned. a lot of areas. He's not going to be, showcased as much. And then he's going to pass away. And then you'll see all these amazing tributes for him. It sucks, to have all those years that superstar Billy Graham was this real bitter, angry, burning bridges. It was just an amazing guy as far as a pro wrestler goes. You couldn't even celebrate the career because of the hatred and the bridges that he burned. And Hulk Hogan, unfortunately, he thinks in his mind that he really didn't do much of anything wrong. And he is sadly mistaken, man. Sadly mistaken. So, all right. We got to clear up a couple of fake news out there. They're ridiculous, but they're still worth mentioning. All right. Fake news number one. I'm sure a lot of you saw this. Somebody took a picture being in a restaurant in Las Vegas, pub restaurant, pub 366, or 365. And there was a piece of paper that if you bought a hamburger and fries, you get 4 free tickets. Well, actually, just free tickets. Doesn't even say how many tickets. I think it's limited 4 per person. 4 free tickets for AEW Double or Nothing. That is 100% lie. What some fan with too much time on their hands, what some fan did was decided to go on Microsoft Word, put the AEW logo, type a couple of lines, print up some papers, thought he was funny, went to a pub and put it in the window, took a picture of it, put it in his menu, took a picture of it. The funny thing is online, nobody is lambasting the asshole that put that out there. So it's fake. It's not real. Back in the day, people used to fuck around with other companies. When you used to have TNA with their street team or WCW with their street team or even indie promotions would show up at WWE events. Guys, how many of you remember back in the day when we used to do street team for USA Pro Wrestling or XPW or go to Nassau Coliseum to promote USA Pro Wrestling, and WWF is having an event there, and in the parking lot, you're giving out your flyers for your event. People used to do that all the time. And then if you had a rival promotion, you would put on somebody's windshield or, oh, this show is canceled, go here instead, even though it wasn't true. I mean, putting stupid shit out like that has been going on for decades. But the thing is that instead of getting the answer, people just celebrated it. It's the tribalism. It's just to celebrate. It's not real. Another one that it's not real is this. If any of you out there saw this, that you could actually buy a 4-pack of AEW Double or Nothing tickets for $40. You go on some website where there's no link, you click in the passcode rewards, and you get your 4 tickets. Again, somebody just trying to poke fun at AEW. And AEW giving away tickets last minute, even if they were giving away tickets last minute, I've said this 1,000 times, that if you have a venue and it seats 10,000 people and you got 9,000 filled, why let the 1,000 seats stay empty? If you could give away some tickets, I got news for you. You could have 1,000 people go in that building for free. I guarantee you some of them, hey, I didn't have to pay for my tickets. Let me go buy a t-shirt instead. Let me go buy a program. Let me go buy food. You bring people in there for free, they could still end up being paying customers. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have a 10,000 seat building and you only sold 1,500 tickets. That's where you run into trouble. But if you have an event that is 70, 80% sold out and you have a bunch of tickets left over, fucking give tickets away. Get people in the building. You might spark a little bit of sales out of it. That person may not be a paying customer now. They might be a paying customer in the future. To me, that's smart business. I see nothing wrong with that. Another bullshit story, and this one is just stupid. Saudi Arabia. Okay. Now, we'll talk about Sami Zayn in a moment. Beautiful to see him, make that pilgrimage. Got some photos I'm going to share with you in a moment. But we know the problems in the Middle East. We know the problems that go on in Saudi Arabia. We see the bias, the treatment of women overall. You see the, just as far as their class, compared to men and this and that. When Sami Zayn, it's funny, when Sami Zayn was announced, we found out that he was going back to Saudi Arabia. I came on the show and gave you all the history about Saudi Arabia and Syria now, in talking again and working for peace. And that's why Sami Zayn was allowed. When you heard about it, the naive people out there, how many times did you read, wow, that sounds incredibly dangerous? How could Sami Zayn go to Saudi Arabia? Man, that's dangerous. That doesn't sound good. Sami Zayn, has been against that country, and yeah. So Paul Heyman is part of the press conference for a WWE Night of Champions. And how Paul Heyman always opens up his promo, ladies and gentlemen, and because he's a heel. I mean, look, fans respect Paul Heyman and they give him pops more than you realize. But when he goes into his shtick with Roman Reigns, and as soon as he starts, ladies and gentlemen, fans start booing. Well, morons online were trying to portray that the press conference, which featured all men, by the way, everybody in attendance were men. That's how it was reported. That as soon as Paul Heyman said, ladies, the crowd started booing the shit out of him because he used the term ladies. I'm going to just show you a few seconds of his intro. You tell me if this crowd is booing him because he said ladies. Just let me cue it up and you see for yourself. There we go. Check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, now you boo me, huh?
Was there anything wrong with that? There was nothing wrong with it. Again, people putting these weird narratives online. And the sad thing about it is it gets thousands and thousands of likes and retweets and attention, and it's fake. It's fake. Brandi Rhodes stirred up some shit this weekend. And I tell you, I was shocked and amazed as to how many people were telling Brandi Rhodes, cut it. This is not a good look on you. This is not a good look on Cody. This is totally unnecessary, Brandi. Did you see her tweet that got people in a fucking uproar? My friends, the response for Cody Rhodes in Saudi Arabia has been insane. It is beyond Dusty Rhodes level right now in Saudi Arabia. And you look at the video, I can't show the video. I don't want to get hit with copyright, but if you look at the screenshot, you look at the video, Cody Rhodes is extremely over in Saudi Arabia. And the turnout has been amazing. So Brandi sees this and she writes on social media, and I quote, and some people still say he should have stayed where he was. Maybe we should let that one go for now. I mean, they have dealt with a lot of bullshit and still deal with a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of bitterness, especially by hardcore AEW fans, that Cody deserted AEW. Brandi's been getting hit with it. Cody's been getting hit with it. And this has been going on for over a year. So you see this kind of response for your husband in Saudi Arabia. That's beautiful. That's not rubbing it in the face of AEW or AEW fans. That's her making the point like, you know what? My husband left. I think he made a great decision. I mean, people still think that Cody should have stood where he was. Take this tweet and put Keith Lee in its place and put a screenshot of Keith Lee where he is right now in AEW. I still am a big fan of Keith Lee, But the perception of Keith Lee is, look at Keith Lee and look at Gunther. Remember that tweet where Keith Lee, had concern about Gunther, and look at where their paths have ended up right now. So you mean to tell me that, if Keith, and use the opposite. If Keith Lee was doing great right now, use Jon Moxley. Is Jon Moxley better now in AEW than if he would have remained in WWE? I think for a lot of people, they would say yes. I think for a lot of people, and I really wouldn't argue with that. Bryan Danielson right now, because he's at the tail end of his career, he is used sparingly. Some people have said Bryan Danielson's AEW run to them has been better than WWE's run towards the end. Yes, movement will never be compared. But towards the end of Daniel Bryan's WWE run, I think AEW is better. So now, if Brie Bella would have, all right, here you go, here. Wembley Stadium. If Brie Bella shows a picture of Bryan Danielson in Wembley, and she writes the exact same thing that Brandi Rhodes writes, you would have some WWE fans, going at Brie and saying, oh, look, yeah, that's one building, but everywhere else they're having a hard time selling tickets. But would Brie Bella be wrong to celebrate that her husband has that opportunity, even if it is for one night? No, she would be doing nothing wrong. Neither did Brandi Rhodes either. But that tribalism is where the problem is. I'm telling you, wait till Wembley, and wait until wrestlers or spouses take pictures of themselves at Wembley in front of 75,000+ people, and watch the response you get from the haters out there. So Brandi Rhodes did nothing wrong. Anybody that takes shots of them at Wembley, they're doing nothing wrong either. So, okay. By the way, little cheap plug. If you haven't checked it out yet, you got to check out Wednesday Night Dynamite. It is on DonTony.com. We had a lot of fun with the CM Punk and the Collision announcement. Did you catch it? With Tony Khan? Tony Khan did a media call for Double or Nothing. And he talked about a couple of various topics. He talked about Mercedes Mone. Was there ever a deal in place to bring Mercedes Mone into AEW? Honestly, I say no. I say there was never a plan for her to possibly be at Forbidden Door. I don't think those discussions ever even began. And the reason being is because in the world of pro wrestling, you always, if you really have not done something or something ain't happening, you always leave it unclear. You always wink. And with Tony Khan, and I want to thank John for sending me this quote. Tony Khan about Mercedes Mone says this. Listen closely. He says, going forward, it does make things interesting because nobody really knows. Besides Mercedes and myself, what was going to happen at Forbidden Door and what the future would have held for her, whether or not that was competing exclusively for New Japan or potentially whether she would be at Forbidden Door. Frankly, now even going forward, I don't think anybody but her knows when she'll be ready to come back to the ring. I have so much respect for Mercedes, and I think she's been a great champion all over the world, including New Japan. She would have been a great first ever strong women's champion, and I think we will have a great champion as well. And she goes on and on and on. The bottom line is that to have that much vague, I don't think there was anything ever in place. And honestly, you would never reveal it. Because if there was something in place and she's now got the injury, the minute she's healed up, you're going to get the hit. Oh, you had a deal before. You should work out something now. So it's only Mercedes and I know the truth. So I don't think there was anything there, nothing at all. So now here's where Tony Khan exposed the fake news. Do you remember about a month ago, you had all of these news sites, journalists, not all, because you had Fightful and a bunch of others that did not ever put it out there. Remember, it's not always what people do report, it's what they don't report. You had all of these journalists, and taking cover like, oh, I wrote that on a message board. Oh, I wrote potentially, possibly, likely the $1 billion deal. That at the upfronts, they're going to announce 5-year deal. Dynamite, extended, 5 years, $240 million. People are doing graphs and analysis. Oh, based on revenue and based on, the 90 cents per person that watches AEW, there could potentially be $188 million for 5 years, and they could possibly go to 6 and 7. And all along, we're watching this like media upfronts don't do that. They don't announce TV deals like you signed a baseball player to a contract. And there was nothing to lead to something like that. So what happens? At the upfronts, no TV deal is mentioned. Okay, there will be a TV deal mentioned, but the most beautiful thing about it was this. Remember the Collision deal? People don't bring that up. Remember all the reports about the Collision deal? Now, we knew they were going to announce AEW Collision. There's no dispute there. But you remember the Collision deal? Oh, the Collision deal is going to be similar to Rampage, $50 million. CM Punk is responsible for $50 million. Tony Khan revealed in the media call that the Collision TV deal is part of the current deal between AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery. Go check out his media call. The contract is up. It has an option for 2024. Warner Brothers Discovery picked up that option. That is why there is no rush for an announcement for a new TV deal, because Warner Brothers Discovery had a 2024 option, and they're taking that option. So as of right now, AEW Collision, AEW Rampage, and AEW Dynamite are all under the same deal. And next year, they might announce a deal this year. Warner Brothers Discovery is so happy that they have extended the TV deal to 2027. That could happen this year. But if it doesn't happen this year, it'll be news next year. But the point is, Tony Khan revealed there is no 3-year, 5-year, $50 million CM Punk this. It was never. It was, okay, we have Battle of the Belts. We had AEW All Access. We want some additional programming on Saturday night. It is part of, now the current deal was amended, but there was no separate deal. There was never a separate deal. And Tony Khan, in his media call, basically exposed every single person that made that claim. I'm not talking about journalists and podcasters that were reacting about the reports. They didn't lie. They're just giving a reaction to what everybody is saying. But for the ones that were doing all this scientific studies and all this money and years and this and that, and the best, CM Punk, $50 million. You know why that $50 million number came out there? Because they wanted to put it on the level of a Saudi Arabia deal. Because every event that WWE does in Saudi Arabia is $50 million. So they want, everything's got to be on the same level. That's why if you take note, even look at Aussie Open. We brought this up Wednesday on the show. Aussie Open, the media, the weird part of the media, treated Aussie Open signing with AEW the same way they did with Jay White. They knew that Jay White was signing with AEW. What they did was, right before they announced the signing, they put this narrative out there that Jay White, the most hottest prospect in wrestling, WWE wants him, AEW wants him, everybody wants him. And Tony Khan grabbed him. And they did the same thing with Aussie Open last week. Did you see? Oh, WWE wants Aussie Open. Oh, they'll throw him in NXT. Oh, WWE, AEW, everybody wants Aussie Open. And then, coincidentally, 3 hours later, Aussie Open is all elite. That's the game. That is the game. So, all right. I think we got, is this person trolling on here? No, she's not. She's not. Somebody sent me a DM. I think somebody's trolling on your page. No, she's not. No, I know. Chaos. I trust you guys. I said shout out to OTS Tribal Queen. Why does everybody think that I got like issues with JD? We did a fucking episode together. I mean, we don't agree on same views a lot, but that's the beauty about wrestling. We don't agree. You know, that's with fun discussion. You know, Kev and I, you know, as years have gone by, you know, people hate when you want debates. People would hate where we would have a discussion and we both felt the exact same way. And you do, you know, you give a speech about how you feel about someone. And then what do you think? I agree. Okay. You know, like suddenly that's like, you know, it just like killed the conversation. And I was guilty of that too. I would say it too. I agree. Well, that was a fun debate. All right. We got a couple other things to get into. By the way, I wanted to show you this. Again, you know, just the narrative. Sami Zayn, let me tell you something. Say what you want about WWE Creative. Say what you want about Vince McMahon. Say what you want. And listen, I saw SmackDown yesterday. The piping noise was pathetic. The only reason why I didn't care that much is because I had the volume on my TV awfully low. I already knew the outcome. I just wanted to overall and see, you know, what goes down on TV. For some reason, Hit Row wearing ski masks. I know why they're doing it, but to me, it was like, nah, ain't working. Ain't suddenly going to, you know, if anything, it's just doing the opposite effect. But the reason why I'm saying all that is because when you see something like this, and Sami Zayn, you know, if you just look at the pictures, look at the tweets, look at the reports coming out of Saudi Arabia towards Sami Zayn. You know, he writes, and I quote, being a pro wrestler and being with WWE has taken me to places I never dreamed of I'd get to see and do things I never thought I got to do. It has provided me a life filled with incredible experiences that I will cherish forever. For those that don't know, Sami Zayn, while in Saudi Arabia, made the pilgrimage to Mecca. You know, there is a very holy pilgrimage that you take to Mecca. It's called an Umrah. I think it's Umrah. And you could take it any time during the year. There's actually two pilgrimages that you could do. One of them, it takes a few hours. And you basically, you know, you do this pilgrimage to Mecca, but there is a whole, you know, process behind it. Like if you saw a video of Sami Zayn like washing his feet, that is actually the purification process that you do. It's a cleansing ritual. And then you have to wear a certain attire. You abstain from certain actions. And this pilgrimage takes a few hours compared to one that would take for days. And you do get some of your haircut. Some people, I think, were under the impression that, you know, you're supposed to have all your hair cut. No, that's not actually the case. But you see this pilgrimage that Sami Zayn made. Let me show you another picture. You know, it's a beautiful thing, man. It's beautiful to see. Sami Zayn, I mean, this, you know, what I like about this is it shows you how religious Sami Zayn is. And I would never put my religion on you. I would never force my religion on you. I would not want any of you to force your religion on me. How you feel about religion, how you feel about, you know, different sexual orientation, however you feel, that's fine. I respect it. I think the problem with today is if you have a religious view towards something, that if it doesn't line with the overall popular viewpoint that everybody seems to profess online, that you're an outcast, you're embarrassed, you can't even show yourself. And I think religion is important. still these days. Me, I'm not that much of a religious guy. And I have my reasons. We've talked about it before on the shows. But, to see Sami Zayn go through this process and go on this pilgrimage and to see how it affected him. Plus, look at the reaction Sami Zayn is getting over there. Welcome home. Welcome home. It's life-changing experience. So very, very happy to see that for Sami Zayn. I'm also happy to see this for Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret Hart yesterday got his star on the Canada Walk of Fame, looking extremely happy. And that's pretty fucking cool, man. I mean, you look online and let's be honest, some of it is true. But Bret Hart, he's got this aura about him that everything about wrestling sucks and he's a bitter man and Goldberg ruined his life. And I mean, that's how people perceive Bret Hart in 2023. And I think that's a little bit unfair. So he got his star on the Canada Walk of Fame. So, all right, we're going to start bringing this home because I know the pre-show for Night of Champions is going to be coming up very, very soon. I do want to let you all know that just a couple other tidbits. With Tony Khan in the media call, CM Punk was not mentioned. And I saw a couple of your DMs since yesterday. And DT, you find it interesting that not one person brought up CM Punk? No. Before the media call took place, it was requested that CM Punk is not brought up in the media call. Yeah, I understand, you're avoiding this, avoiding that. Listen, he's going to be announced. He hasn't been announced yet. Right now, it's Double or Nothing. And if you tuned into Wednesday's show, we talked about it. It was partly CM Punk's idea to not announce his return before Double or Nothing because he's not on Double or Nothing. He's not advertised for Double or Nothing. They want the focus to remain on the wrestlers that are going to be appearing at Double or Nothing. So that's why CM Punk was not mentioned at all. Not much was mentioned about the Collision deal, but Tony Khan also, made it clear. By being unclear, he made it clear that this is not a hardcore roster split like everybody was portraying it. It's not about anti-CM Punk wrestlers staying on Wednesdays and pro-CM Punk wrestlers or those indifferent to the situation going to Saturdays. No, and that's why a week ago I said I wish they would use the term touring groups. You have Dynamite in Texas and you have Collision in Canada. Of course, you got two totally different touring groups. They're not in the same town. That is why they're not going to cross paths. Stop with the idea that there's animosity involved. CM Punk has squashed a lot of issues with AEW management. It's just that the people out there that don't like Punk will never push that narrative. And the people that don't talk to Punk, that aren't 100% sure, they're kind of afraid to put that out there. But as time goes by, you will learn. Look at Thunder Rosa. Look at the narrative, the perception about Thunder Rosa up until last Wednesday. Before Thunder Rosa showed up on Dynamite, knocking on Tony Khan's door, think of the perception. The perception was, wow, Saraya is still saying that Thunder Rosa had to, she apologized to the locker room and they said, why did she have to apologize, this and that? And the locker room forgave her. And a lot of the stuff with Thunder Rosa was addressed months ago. It's just, like I said, even with Sabu apologizing to certain individuals. Now, I'm not going to start throwing names out there because the wrestlers, the announcers, the people that work in wrestling, if they want to make public that Sabu apologized to them, let them make it public. I'm not going to speak for them. But just because he didn't apologize to you and me doesn't mean that he didn't apologize. And as time goes by, you realize if somebody was truthful about their apology or if they were just saying it because they got caught. Still, a lot of people to this day think that the only reason why Hulk Hogan cried on camera was a sort of apologetic early on is because he got caught. he got caught. Why would you cry if you felt like, I didn't do anything wrong, brother? I don't have any hate in me, brother. We always use the N-word, brother. Why are you crying then? You cry because the whole world took a shit on you. And instead of saying, look, brother, it's not in my heart, but, I could see why people would be really upset, brother. And, I want to, reassure everyone, brother, that blah, 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 brother. But no, it was a speed bump, brother. All right. Tony Khan also is being a little bit more politically correct when it comes to WWE programming airing on the same day as their programming. Shawn Michaels was asked about Battleground being on the same night as Double or Nothing. Tony Khan was asked about it. He says, it's been that feeling from day one since we launched the TV show. It actually probably changed a little bit on April 2021. And now with this, it feels like the old days and some days. I'm always very eager to compete in whatever arena I'm in. I really love competition in pro wrestling as long as it's done with ethical standards. People running events at some similar times, I don't know if that's necessarily unethical. I don't have a big problem with it. I wish everybody the best, and I expect we will do the best show on Sunday. I think there's a big audience for AEW Double or Nothing. Certainly the spirit of competition is something we've dealt with since the launch of AEW. Never really had any problem. Somebody's getting in Tony Khan's ear and saying, yeah, you got to stop the provocations. And you know what? I'm going to make a prediction. AEW in the near future is going to start doing events on the same night that WWE does events. I don't know. I don't want to say televised, but AEW Collision is not always going to be airing on a Saturday, especially when there's going to be some complications with sports down the line. It's going to be interesting to see if it airs at the same time or a similar time that WWE programming is on TV. I don't want to make any predictions, but suddenly he is being very, very politically correct. So, and no updates as far as like the commentary team for Collision, Sting's retirement match. But I think Double or Nothing is going to be a good show. I know there's a lot less buzz this year compared to previous years. I don't know exactly the reasons behind it, and it's not just because of CM Punk not being on that card. But I will say this. I was very, very disappointed. They revealed the participants for the Battle Royal for Orange Cassidy's International Championship, and Hobbs was pulled off of it. As you see, Jay White, Ricky Starks don't have a match. Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland still have not had their match. But, yeah, it just feels, I don't know, something is lacking. Something is lacking. I got to let it sink in a little bit, but something is definitely lacking right now. And you think about it, now the House of Black has their open challenge. You got the Blackpool Combat Club, maybe too many main events with these guys, interacting with each other. Maybe too much interaction with each other on TV with matches that, of course, anarchy in the arena is going to be fucking insane. But you look at some of these other wrestlers like Taya Valkyrie and Jade Cargill, with all due respect, the last match they had was pretty freaking awful. And I think the bloom is off the rose with Jade Cargill, that she still has a lot, of work to go. And she is nowhere near, I think people are starting to say, like, this title reign, it just doesn't, it doesn't feel like there's progress, so to speak, other than numbers going up. And then you look at Jamie Hayter and Tony Storm. That feud with the Outcasts has been going on forever. I think people are kind of tired with that. The Four Pillars feels a little bit forced. And believe me when I tell you, as ridiculous as this sounds, that first night when MJF was in the ring with Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, and Sammy Guevara, and MJF said something like, you want a title shot? Who wants a title shot? And all three at the same time, like synchronized talking, like it's an Olympic sport. I do. It felt like a WWE skit more than anything else. And, with all due respect to Jungle Boy, I don't see him as a main eventer or a world champion. But I will say this too. I saw, all right, you get a kick out of this. Money in the Bank qualifying matches. And by the way, we're going to finish in about 5 minutes, everybody. I know pre-show's coming up. We got Money in the Bank qualifying matches coming this week. Now, you know why people are in an uproar about LA Knight and Montez Ford having a match? People are in an uproar because the Boozers, no, I'm not Boozer, and all these others all predicted that, or they didn't predict it, they reported it, that LA Knight and Montez Ford were both in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So their choices now, one of them will not be in that ladder match. Lacey Evans, remember Kevin and I's discussion? We didn't just do predictions about Night of Champions. We talked about what happens next. We have this bad feeling that Lacey Evans is going to be the next one in line to feud with Bianca. Bianca, as Wade Barrett says, Bianca. Oh, and by the way, Bianca Belair on that, what was that guy online? Not Chris Hansen. What was the guy that show that they do where they just go over the top? And somebody in the chat room bailed me out on that. But, there was some guy yesterday that does that show, and it's really, really vulgar, and it gets raunchy, and it's almost like roasting. And he got up in like Bianca Belair's face in front of Montez Ford, and he's like, "Oh, I would impregnate her." What was the guy's name? I watched mostly, I hate to say it like this, mostly white people getting their balls in a bunch about it for Bianca Belair, not understanding what that show is about. That show intentionally, when you go on that show, you know that there's a good chance something is going to be said, or there's going to, no one in it, is everybody, nobody knows who this guy's name is. Who's the one that got into Bianca yesterday and is like, "Oh, I'd impregnate her." And Montez's Ford is there like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Nobody knows. Unbelievable. Nick Cannon. Okay. Simply Unknown. Thank you, Nick, Simply Unknown. Nick Cannon, Wild and Out. It's almost like going to a roast. If you're going to be on the panel going to a roast, remember those Comedy Central roasts? You go on that panel, you know that there's a good chance something is going to be said about you that's going to piss you the fuck off. It's just that online, since Bianca Belair is such a role model, almost like the John Cena of the women's division, some people have coined her. It's like, now you got this universe of Nick Cannon and Wild and Out. And how could you put Bianca in a position like that where you got Nick Cannon doing what he does? You know that he's going to say, "Oh, shut up. Eat a Snickers. Eat a Snickers." Stop feeling like, "Oh, if I was Montez Ford, I would have punched him in the fucking mouth." Trust me, on a lower scale, I talked about it, why I don't go to the San Gennaro feasts anymore. San Gennaro feasts. It's a feast here in New York, in Little Italy. When I was a lot younger and probably about 50, 60 pounds fatter, one night I went to the San Gennaro feast with my friends, and I had a date, and we were walking in the feast. And then some of you will love this. And there was a clown. And the clown was in the water tank, and you paid like $5 and you got 5 softballs, and you had the opportunity to knock the clown into the water. So as we're walking by, "Oh, look at this fat fuck greaseball over here. Look at him. Oh, you got fucking pizza oil on you." And I just kept walking. I didn't even realize he was talking to me. And all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, the guy with the two-tone white jeans and the gray jeans, the fat fuck there that looks like Eddie Munster. Like Eddie Munster." And all my friends like, "He's talking about you. You're going to just let him do that?" Unfortunately, this was not like Goodfellas with Spider. What, are you going to just take it and you shoot Spider? No. He was trying to get me to buy the softballs. Motherfucker. And I never went to another feast. Why? Because I wasn't prepared for a clown to make fun of me. So now if I went to the feast again, hopefully now I wouldn't be made fun of. Maybe just that I'm old. But if I went to the feast the following year and I walked past the clown and I'm still like, then I have to be prepared. Like, hey, something might be said about me. I got to be a little bit prepared. So that's all it was. This uproar about Bianca Belair. I think these are people that just don't understand what wilding out is, or are just looking for a reason to get attention. So I didn't buy the softball, so I walked as fast as I could. Or as he said, he's the guy that wobbling. I used to wobble like a penguin. So when I was younger, people called me the Michelin Man. You ever see that white Michelin character that's made up of tires and his body looks like the abdominal snowman or whatever? Okay. SmackDown yesterday, Austin Theory retains the United States title over Sheamus, Raquel Rodriguez, and Shotzi over Bayley and Io Sky. More miscommunication with Bayley and Io Sky. They're going to milk it a little bit longer. But now with Dakota Kai with her injury, now it's going to be a little different. Io Sky ultimately will just walk out on Bayley. Bayley will ultimately turn on Io Sky and cheap shot her, and that'll lead to a feud. But right now, it's just miscommunication. That would build a little bit more. They'll take their time with this. Cameron Grimes over Ashante Adonis, LA Knight over Rick Boogs, and AJ Styles over Karrion Kross. Excellent match for AJ Styles and Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross once again on a losing effort. I think, like I said, been saying it for a while, turn him babyface, let him beat the fuck out of Baron Corbin and someone else that gets under people's skin. Oh, I know what I wanted to say before. We were talking about the qualifying matches. There's rumors that Dominic Mysterio may get a qualifying match for Money in the Bank. And for anybody out there that really has a problem with Dominic Mysterio getting a Money in the Bank qualifying match, not even saying he's going to win. Again, just because Jungle Boy is a pillar doesn't mean that he should be walking around with a championship that the way it looked in the picture the other day, that the belt is taller than him. Should Jade Cargill be a champion right now? I get it. You cash in the briefcase, you're going for a heavyweight championship, but that doesn't mean that he's going to win. We've had some people with the briefcase before. Carmella, why? Because it's the women's division. Rampage yesterday, the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn over Dralistico, Roosh, and Preston Vance. Ethan Page and the Guns over Fresco, Matic, Watson, and Braxton. Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida over Nyla Rose and Marina Shafir. Big Bill and Lee Moriarty over the Best Friends. NXT Level Up, Oro Mensah over Tavian Heights. Javier Bernal over Boa. And Valentina Feroz and Yulisa de Leon over Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. I am looking at my notes. I am checking them twice. We are done, everyone. Oh, Night of Champions is nice. I sound like Becky Lynch with her rhyming from Monday. That was freaking awful. Listen, let me jet out of here. Before I go, I see that we got a super chat earlier. I want to give thank you to Ronnie C with a 10 spot. He watched Impact Under Siege last night. Trinity did good, but the story was PCO getting his mouth stapled shut. How do you think PCO would have done in the original ECW? Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Carl Pierre Louette. People always mix up those names. Carl Pierre Louette. Jean-Pierre Lafitte. PCO is a sick motherfucker, man. I saw the segment of him getting his mouth stapled shut. Gave me flashbacks to Vic Grimes when Vic Grimes got his tongue stapled by Shane Douglas on an XPW event. And at that time, I thought that was gross. I got sick to my stomach. And even after the show, and Vic Grimes pulled it out. Now you got PCO literally getting his entire mouth stapled shut. As I'm watching that segment of PCO, I'm thinking to myself, my dad probably would have done that to me years ago. If there was a, safe for human flesh staples, like non-toxic, I think my dad would have stapled my mouth shut. Some of you right now would love to see me staple my mouth shut. I will not do that for a super chat, by the way. Would PCO be good in the original ECW? I got to be honest with you. I fucking love PCO right now. I can't believe that he hasn't shown up in AEW. I would have rather had him than Nick Gage, with all due respect. I would have rather had him because it's the way his character is now. It's almost like the same feeling I had when Bob Backlund turned heel in the mid-90s. Like, I grew up when Bob Backlund was champion. And honestly, his promos, I thought he was on Xanax all the time. Bob Backlund was one of my favorites. I had the opportunity to have dinner with him, sign my cast and everything else, and I broke my arm. But his promos, you thought he was in a library, the way he would talk. And then you'd see him get brain farts, and he'd just look at the screen. Mass Superstar. You see what happens on Monday. And you just like walk off. I'm like, he was horrendous. And then he suddenly, going after the plebeians. I'm like, where did this come from? I mean, it's almost like a bad TV show when somebody gets knocked on the head and then they come through and they're a totally different person. But PCO, I got to be honest with you guys. When I think back to the original ECW, I picture like PCO showing up for one match and all of a sudden New Jack's music hits. And New Jack beating the shit out of PCO, stapling his mouth shut, hitting him with a vacuum cleaner, an old Nintendo, a keyboard, whatever. Like, I could see him getting his ass kicked one night. I don't know if he would be a mainstream person there because that hardcore stuff, New Jack was the godfather of it in ECW. Raven went hardcore, Tommy Dreamer, Terry Funk, everybody went hardcore. Well, not everybody, but a lot did. But New Jack was the godfather. PCO, I can't picture him being this hardcore all the time in ECW. To me, I think he would be more of a person passing through than being a regular person there. I tell you the truth, I think he would have probably been a good fit in XPW back in the day. Not now, because everything is deathmatch and it's not even about like storyline as much anymore. I think 20 years ago when XPW was invading the Northeast, I think PCO probably would have fit in much better there. I could see him feuding with Supreme, feuding with, a few others there. I don't know if he would have been a good fit in ECW. I could just picture him like one or two nights, and then that's it. So, but, all right. So I'm going to jet out of here. I hope everybody enjoys Night of Champions. That is taking place today at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then don't forget, on Sunday, we will crown a new NXT Women's Champion. I think this is Tiffany Stratton's to lose. And then hopefully we will find out who the masked person is. Some people were coming back to me, starting to feel the Mandy Rose return a little bit. Some people love my idea with Alexa Bliss. Some people think that the masked person right now is a little bit too tall for it to be Alexa Bliss. Understand that up until this past Tuesday, the person under the mask doesn't necessarily have to be the person that is revealed. WWE has done that in the past. Pro wrestling has done it in the past. If somebody is a masked person and there's not a reveal right away, you don't necessarily, especially if it's somebody that gets paid a lot of money. Like, you don't want to take the chance of a fan seeing that wrestler in a parking lot. Or locally, oh, look who I bumped into tonight. Oh, just happened to be 2 blocks away from NXT. You don't want to, even though it's their minor leagues, you don't want to get caught with that. So whoever the reveal is, if it ends up being Mandy Rose, understand that some of those attacks were not Mandy Rose under the mask. If it ends up being Alexa Bliss, I just hope it's a household name. Nothing against Blair Davenport and everybody else, but it's got to be a household name so the fans erupt like, oh, fuck, holy shit, I can't believe it. I think people are, oh, Blair Davenport, oh, cool. To me, it's like, why would people be in an uproar about it? Could happen. Maybe it's Michael Satamura. So we'll see what happens. So I remember, as soon as we're done here, about 5-10 minutes after I leave, I'm going to post a poll in the community section what we should do about Sunday's sit-down episode. I think the choice is either we don't do one or we do it at 8 o'clock on schedule, even though NXT and AEW will be on the air, or we do it earlier, maybe at 5 o'clock or at 6 o'clock. Majority of the votes with majority choice is what we go with. I'll probably keep that poll going until the morning, and then I'll let everybody know by the morning what the majority outcome was, and then we'll either do an episode or we won't. And then Monday we'll discuss Raw. Tuesday, Kevin and I will be doing Night of Champions, and then next Wednesday I will talk a little bit about Double or Nothing and NXT. So if something insane goes down with NXT or AEW Sunday night, then maybe I'll do a little quick recording and I'll put it on DonTony.com. I'll let everybody know about it. And then, no reason why I can't do some impromptus, recordings. But all right, everybody, I'm out of here. Much love. Enjoy the weekend. Got a lot of wrestling coming up. So enjoy. Be well, everybody. Much love.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.